Okay, I'd like to start this session. Mudge is going to talk. He used to be with, I'm trying to think, at Right, and then, no, at Stake, and then now he's with...
Wasn't that right, that's for sure. Well, at wrong maybe, but I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. Sorry,
But he's with BBN now, and he actually gave me greetings from an old friend that I worked with up there, too, at one time. He's got an interesting conversation on economics. I'm sure that if you would like to interrupt with questions, he'll ignore you, so you may have to yell a little to get his attention. It's hard to actually see hands. I'm standing up here and the light's in my eyes. So I thought I would give you a warning, so if you do have questions, go ahead. Mudge.
Thanks, Jack. Okay, well, I have to do this. It's been a little while, so I haven't spoken to Black Hat in I don't know how many years. Oh, you knock that off. Yeah, absolutely. And of course now I'm being introduced by Jack Halloran, who works for the National Sanitation Agency, which is very good. Used to work. You cleaned it up very well. I'm sorry, I got it wrong. It was no salary advancement? No. Thank you. No such agency is too passé. So, oh boy, I thought I charged it up. It's all going to work beautifully today. So, I was out last night getting research for this talk till about, I'd say, probably 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And there was a guy that I met at the bar. This is going to be a little different talk, actually, than hopefully what you normally see. And it struck me that this guy was, A, very intelligent, B, very articulate, and C, could put on a really good front, but then would, when push came to shove, would put himself down. And it kind of disturbed me, actually. I don't know if it was me seeing myself a few years back or something, but the kid just didn't know actually how bright he was. And of course, he might have been playing me, like other people. But that's what this talk is basically going to be about. Different ways of looking at things, different ways of seeing things that might be actually right in front of you, but we're all too blind to actually understand, interpret, and then act upon. So I do have the largest and longest introduction for a talk that I've ever seen in a Black Hat briefing, which I think was something the equivalent of physics, psychology, economics is applied to internally constrained internal environments and how that maps to information security, counterintelligence, counterespionage, and blah, 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 blah. It's a functional fixation, learned helplessness, and techie talk. Who's got a quarter on him? Some people have seen me do this one before. No. I'll take one if you'll give it to me. Who's got a quarter on him? Well, this is going to be annoying when it keeps turning off like that. Yeah, watch my eyes, watch my eyes. Even better. Why you have a euro, I'm really curious about. So, a gentleman on the no-fly list just gave me a euro. And of course, so those of you who have actually seen this little exercise, just play along if you don't mind. What is this? Coin, a token. Good. What is it? A unit of exchange. Okay, good. What is it? A what? A collective hallucination. You don't know, I'm the collective hallucination. Piece of metal? Okay, we're getting there. What is it? It's power. Oh, good grief. Yeah, about 1.45 to 1 right now, but let's see. Keep going. What is it? Oh, contract, okay. A chance to earn 2,000 more. Spoken like a person in Vegas. Great. This is called functional fixation. The inability to see an object for anything other than what it was initially presented to you as. Good. It's a weapon. You can throw it, you can basically shove it places. What is it? Let's keep going with that. A shim. Very good. Somebody saw one of the old talks. Very good then. It's a door shim. Okay, that was a good one. What is it? A table leg balancer. Okay. We're getting there. Thank you. Hi, my name is Mudge and I am an alcoholic. What else is it? Time? Like that, randomizer. A decision tool, yes, absolutely. One of the, go ahead. A symbol. Oh my goodness, tunes this. Keep going, what is it? Oh, conductor, oh great. For the guy in Arkansas driving around who lost his headlights, it's a conductor. It's a replacement for a fuse. Which is better than the 22 round that hasn't been spent yet. Screwdriver. You're starting to get it. Decision-making tool, a door shim, screwdriver. That's, yeah, exactly, circle drawing tool. That's the way you break out of functional fixation. Okay. Need a scribe up here. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, cast predict from Sun Microsystems. Come on up. I know you are, that's why I have two. It's an old friend of mine, Simple Nomad. He's an old friend of the loft, a very old friend of the community. And yeah, and he's drinking my drink. Encryption. It was a solution to everything. Let's come out with SSH. Let's get protocols that are encrypted. This is fantastic. Strong crypto. And 40 was a magic number to choose. Strong crypto. We're going to go through a little exercise here with protocols that are run off of your local Unix boxin. Which ones are encrypted? Which ones aren't? Where the authentication mechanisms come from, and what password file they all pull from. Simple Nomad is going to be my, my jerk. He's going to be my scribe, drawing very nice abstract images and showing them to me. Yeah, I picked them all right. Give me a protocol that you use on a standard Linux, Unix, OpenBSD, NetBSD, next step system. SSH, okay. SSH in the left column. Encrypted, non-encrypted, we'll ignore the dash cipher none. Encrypted, non-encrypted. Who said non-encrypted? I love it. They're even doing padding now. That's a smart move. Encrypted. Where's the, where are the user credentials pulled from? Depends a little bit. Where are they usually pulled from in most installations and uses? Etsy, I heard Etsy Shadow, Etsy password. So the master password list on the actual system. Give me another protocol. DNS. Unencrypted, unauthenticated. DNSSEC has some promises. We'll see if it gets out. It's a little easier to deploy than SPGP, and my keeper would kill me for saying that. No credentials, no password. Give me another protocol. NTP, Network Time Protocol. Okay. Encrypted, unauthenticated. Dave Wagner had a really good paper on it for some early vulnerabilities or early analysis of it. Another protocol, please. Just LDAP. Oh. A guy who wants to be in the Microsoft camp yet can't make it. Where are the credentials pulled from? It's kind of a cyclical question. We'll leave that one alone because nobody's figured that one out yet. What protocols do you use every day? SMTP. Oh, there we go. Okay. Unencrypted. No password file, no nothing. ACP, okay. Somebody finally said web, my goodness. That is the internet. Very well done. Kerberos. Encrypted. If we're not talking about Kerb 4, they don't even have the ticket granting ticket problem, but that's all right. Have you talked to him lately? That was a long time ago. You weren't paying attention, so you don't know who I'm referencing. No, we were making Kerberos jokes. Yes, it was a long time ago. What are other authentication protocols? We'll narrow it down. NIS. There you go. Yellow Pages, YP, NIS. We'll actually go into NetInfo, if you will. Another bastardized child. Where are the credentials taken from that? NIST maps, which are almost always pulled from the Etsy password on whatever the main NIST domain, NIST controller is. Who said that? You're evil. Okay. We've got radius TACAX. Diameter. I love it when the IETF has a sense of humor. They might as well just re-release the evil bit RFC. Are you seeing a trend at all? Can you read some of those back?
Well, let's see. Most of them are unencrypted. Most of them are unencrypted.
Read them back.
All right. SSH encrypted. Etsy Shadow. DNS unencrypted. NDP unencrypted. LDAP no one knows. SMTP unencrypted. Although I guess you could use TLS if you wanted to, but you know, for the most part, it's usually.
Good. But it's a blind Diffie-Hellman, so you still don't know who you're talking to.
Exactly. All it does is okay.
Where's the PKI?
Okay. And then Kerberos encrypted.
Or it's authenticated.
Authenticated. NIS unencrypted, Etsy password, et cetera. Radius unencrypted, et cetera.
Okay. So SSH is an interactive communications protocol stream. You can also use for non-interactive communications. We all love it. You know, Tato Yoloman, fantastic guy. I hope he's actually making money off of a venture. I know he'd always promised that if he wrote anything for Unix, it would be free. If he had to write anything for Windows, you had to pay him. So I see a lot of Windows users out there. I'm sorry. What are other protocols that we use that require authentication? POP, IMAP. Oh, I'm just up here doing research. Oh, you're getting paid. Drink up. POP, IMAP. Good. RSA and SOAP. What world do you people live in? I'm talking to you on the RSA and SOAP protocol. I like it. Other ones that we authenticate with. Oh, come on. Some of you guys have had sniffers out there for a long time. Why do they still work? Somebody's already priming me for the TCP/IP drinking game. Great. We'll put IPsec down. But explain to me what you use it for, where you use it for, and where you've deployed it. and in which mode you're using it in. And do you like ICMP? That was a brilliant paper that came out, actually. TFTP. There we go. A Cisco man finally spoke up. Is anybody seeing what I'm going after right now? You figured out the coin. But we all scream for, very, very, very strong crypto in the one that we use. And all the authentication comes from the same source. Many of them don't have any authentication. We'll sit there and we'll SSH all over the place. We love it. And then, of course, we'll put our POP or IMAP server on, please check my mail every 5 minutes. Sending the password out, clear text, back and forth. He's not going to participate at all. This is called learned helplessness. This is something, okay, I'm going to get in trouble again. Jack needs to leave when I say I'm going to get in trouble again. Learned helplessness is the inability, I don't even know why I'm saying this in front of this gentleman over here, talking about functional fixation, learned helplessness, and, mixed martial arts beatdowns. Learned helplessness is the inability to see your way outside of a problem, to only see the one solution that a vendor is providing to you. This is where advisories originally were supposed to change things. I've got a problem with the way advisories are run lately, for the past several years. When I started doing advisories with the Loft, probably 94, 95, something, 90, I don't even remember anymore. My goal was the fact that I could not contact any organization or company and get them to acknowledge the problem, to address the problem, fix it, and not tell me, who else did you tell about the problem? Nobody, sirs. It's your product. I thought I was doing the right thing. That's good. It'll be fixed. Don't call us ever again. Don't say anything. The industry was at a particular level. This is about here. In my mind, the hackers were at a level way up here. We changed the industry. They responded. Microsoft, and I can't believe I'm going to defend them in a freaking public stage here. Microsoft, has a secure at Microsoft.com. They got rid of abuse at Microsoft.com, violating the RFC, but that's all right. Not funny. Oh, it's funny. But they changed. They're a freaking aircraft carrier that's now turning a little bit. Intel has a security at Intel response. They got into the security business. IBM actually had other channels for a long time. They're the maker of a lot of very interesting products, actually, still. And even they opened up for the commercial world, for our sector, to actually report problems into. I don't care if they actually do the right thing, if they're not taking the top-notch developers off of their projects to fix things, but they're putting some people on it, which is a heck of a lot better than they used to do. The industry changed. Advisories didn't. Now they're used for a different purpose. This is the finality of initial spin. The way that you first present something to somebody, or to some audience, or some group of people, and with whatever slant that you have, will be the dominating and overriding way that it will be received in perpetuity. When BO2K came out, we had a field day. We were just trying to mess with folks. We were trying to mess with Microsoft. We were trying to mess with folks. They are folks. I'll replace certain letters in between the F and the K. I'm kidding. I'm going to get sued again after this one. We presented it as an evil tool. Cult of the dead cow. Back orifice 2K. How else is it going to be interpreted? We did a little experiment. So at the Loft, which history actually needs to finally have this documented, The Loft funded BO2K. Bill Dog was working there. Loft, Crack, and Annie Sniff were paying for that actual work, but it was a CDC tool, so we didn't want the attachment to it. When it was released in a very sensational fashion. At a DEF CON, smashing guitars and everything. Which, I don't know, that was the best time in the world. Of course, the media loved it. They picked it up, sells copies. That was the initial spin. Evil tool. It was a lightweight PC anywhere, remotely possible, whatever you want to call it. Even had encryption, which the others didn't. As part of the project, we released the Loft Professional Pack for BO2K. Unfortunately, Loft already had some initial spin on how they were slanted. And what this was these tools were all of the equivalents to PC Anywhere Remotely Possible, the way that you could actually do enterprise management in a secure way that the other ones weren't offering you the ability to do. Evil tool. Couldn't change it. With that, I'm going to start my talk. Maybe. People know my background. We already did psychology, functional fixation, learned helplessness. Finality of initial spin. Hey, I actually tried this. I had this one up on my door prior to 9/11 at stake. Didn't know that I chose the right airlines. They asked me to take it down afterwards. I'll never understand that. Give folks a few seconds here. I had a couple of friends that I really respected that worked for the government. Still do respect them. They've taken me off their blacklist, which is very nice. Now, of course, with me drinking in front of everybody else, I'm probably back on it. Robert Hansen and Aldrich Ames were very interesting. Robert Hansen was equipped with a Palm Pilot. This is in the non-classified briefing that went out, was forwarded over. It was a Palm Pilot that was provided to him by his Russian friends. It had Loft tools on it when we were messing around with the Palm Pilots. I thought, kind of hip. I know what level the Russians are at. And they're probably watching Booty Call and other... I know, it's difficult over there. Everybody's, it's cold. And I said, well, so what? I mean, you got them. Problem was, it took them so damn long. So after I left that stake, I went back to something that I started doing when I was originally at BBN, or actually even prior to BBN, which was looking at accepting risk, accepting the fact that you're owned, and hopefully finding it out earlier rather than later. I don't know if the industry is ready for this yet, but I'd rather catch an Aldrich Ames or, excuse me, a Hansen 1 or 2 years into it. There's already a lot of damage done, rather than 10 or 12. No, nobody can read that. I stepped back and I wondered why Chris Klaus, ISS, and everybody made so much money, did such a great domination of the industry, and that yet nothing's changed. Yeah, I'm still going for the jabs. Here's some misperceptions and corrections. Entry to critical, that should be EG, not IE, internal environments is accomplished through overt and directed attacks. Of course, you see a place, you go after them. Ignore that big 24-net. Ignore the broadband users. Of course, we're not going to go off an island hop. We're not going to scan 16 some odd million, if it was totally populated systems, looking for trivial vulnerabilities, and then asking them, do you have any virtual private network set up? No, we're going to go directly after target X. Bullshit. It's opportunistic. You put a sniffer on, a nice ingress egress point, a transit network, you come back in 3 days, and you go for whatever strikes your fancy. Hopefully you weren't actually doing DNS lookups or other things that might have given you away. Where are the transit networks? That's a question. Wake up, sir. What are large transit networks? Where are they? Somebody said ISPs are providers. Fantastic. Their job is to move bits from point A to point B. Do not filter, do not move anything else, because A, that's going to cost me support costs. Granted, it will, and they will mess something up. And it's also going to somewhat slow their speed down. Where's another large transit place? Point. Somebody said something. Backbone, that's still large ISPs, still, you know. Well, the lack of a correct answer can only be ascribed to higher education. Universities. Internet too. Not a lot of people on there, but look at the bandwidth that's going. Look at the associations they have with companies, with partners in the public sector that they're working for, in the private sector that they're working for, working with. Why is it that MIT has popped so frequently? Sorry, guys. Why is it that other universities are popped so frequently? Why is it that ISPs are the primary place where sniffers are placed? Look, large group of people, a lot of bits going back and forth. I think we just talked about some protocols also. You know, yeah. If you draw one more picture. He's got both sexes represented now. Sniffing still works wonderfully. I don't care if you're switched or if you're whatever. You're switched. You can come back 3 days later, go, geez, NASA. NASA's cool. NASA's hip. And as the media recently reported, NASA is where the dope-smoking people over in England like to hack into and forget what they found to try and find the aliens. Functional fixation, learned helplessness, and finality of initial spin. That's one perfect example right there. All right, this is straightforward. I got bent out of shape many years ago in Texas when actually somebody told me this because I was in charge of a large organization a long time ago. And now it's the first bullet that I have on my slide. They're already in. Intruders are already in. You have an X and Y graph, which is vulnerability over time. And vulnerability is not vulnerabilities as the way we're thinking about it. Vulnerabilities is what are they doing? What can they get over time that we're talking about? What sort of information are they going after? You know, Hansen could have just gone into the library and stolen all the books. He didn't. Much more valuable to stay in as long as he could, get access to things that he might or might not have, had a direct relationship or involvement with, and go over there. As time expands, opportunities increase. The last thing you want to do is to be discovered. Now, I have to make a statement. I started another company after At Stake, which is called Intrusic, and I will not do product pitches, product placements, but I need to make that publicly aware that I put a lot of this stuff into the Intrusic product. So you need to take that for what it's worth. The goal was, of course, if they're here, they're going to be upset that I'm giving away some obvious things. Passive control, stay inside. They're already in there. Exfiltrate the data. And be opportunistic. Okay, that segues a little out. So, how many physicists here? Spot the problem in this.
That's the problem.
Yeah. This was my first cut many, many years ago at what I call the physics of networks. In particular, the physics of internal constrained environments, i.e., e.g., enclaves. I was looking at things and said, Bruce has got to be wrong yet again. Bruce Schneier started off his book was Lies and something else, Secrets and Lies, saying everything else that I ever wrote about or that I said is wrong. And I'm here to publicly say I'm taking credit for that statement, for him doing it. I was an early reviewer of the book. I like Bruce. Bruce is a great guy. He's very smart. He can turn things into language that's publicly and easily accessible. But he was an academic. And yeah, Bruce, that's great. The Applied Cryptography, fantastic book, very accessible. And I don't care how much you teach people, but they're still writing core crypto. And they're using the code from your book. So I said, there have to be other fields that make sense here. Physics, economics, we already started on psychology. You wouldn't be at a hacker convention if you didn't actually already understand psychology a little bit. You might not realize it, but that's the easiest way to win. That and having a power supply. So, I looked at physics. Thought I was smart, got a lot of it wrong. But there are a lot of, on the left-hand side I have general sciences, in the middle I have physics, and then in the right-hand side, so that's general physics, and on the right-hand side I have internal networks. And this, I'm sure this will be in the handout, so you can read it. I'm not going to walk you through it right there. I said, geez, one size does not fit all. If organizations want a custom solution, they're unwilling to pay for it. And it's too much overhead, it's too much operational cost to endure and to maintain. The cost of ownership is just too great. When they wanted one-size-fits-all solutions, vulnerability scanners and other things to that extent, well, it helped maybe, but it was too general. So it didn't actually address their specific business direction and business function. I said, I was reading Secrets and Lies, and Bruce was saying, only in the internet do all of our original constructs about supply and demand, security, vulnerability, and risk assessment for what we're actually going to take ownership to entirely fall down. I said, that's amazing. Civilizations have been around for a long time. And they've survived, they've grown, they've flourished, they've fallen. What is so unique about the internet? It's the equivalent of going from horse-drawn carriage roads or other pack mule type avenues for moving goods from point A to point B, because of course information and goods need to go from where they are to where they are not, to using airplanes. It's just another delivery vehicle. It's just another delivery mechanism. This can't be right. Only in the internet has the insider, the enclave, been at a disadvantage from the attacker. That's amazing. It's wrong, too. Anytime you go out and oppose a force in somebody else's enclave, you're at a disadvantage. You've got logistics, you've got movement, you've got support, you've got intelligence, and you're in an environment that you don't own and control, and that you don't know inside and out. That last one might be the kicker, unfortunately. But it's almost always more difficult to go in somewhere else than it is to defend something that you own and control. So, I think Bruce is a little wrong again. The internet is no different than, well, no, let me rephrase that. The internet is the world. It is ubiquitous. Information is free-flowing. It is very distributed. Your environment, your enclave, is not the internet. You have server rooms. You have data centers. You have places. Not everybody has a Sun Dragon on their desktop. You did not distribute your Oracle database across everybody's desktop PC. Well, of course, that would have been the smartest thing to do, to make a decentralized intranet, that mirrored the internet. But of course, it will be flaky, like the internet. And that's not just on connectivity, that's content. So, I looked at physics. I said, this makes sense. We have constrained environments. We have conservation of energy. You don't send out most of your packets in a broadcast or multicast aspect. You send them out directly to the server. You know where you're going. You get the information back. You are consuming, the server is producing. You are initiating, the server is receiving. You are non-interactive most of the time. The few times that you actually want to get on Silk or IRC, yes, you're SSHing over to a shell machine. These things are all very deterministic, very easy to model, easy to map, and they are the way that an internal enclave, an internal environment, is actually designed. So I decided to take physics, psychology, economics, and go over to a couple websites and just learn the military lingo for it. Identify, analyze, predict, confirm, produce, output. Well, that's tough on the internet, but it's very easy on a constrained internal environment. Servers are servers. They are not servers and also clients. When was the last time you saw the internal web server surfing the web itself? Pardon? Yeah, exactly. I don't have the same employees he does. Hence, he's got a compromised internal web server. And that's the way to identify it. They're going to be inside. Think about the way things normally work. Think about, I can't believe I'm going to say this one also. Think about the academic aspect of how we've been trying to solve large internet problems. Think about how the IETF works. But then put it within a constrained environment. There are a few right there. Clients and servers. Who produces the most information? Servers, I heard. Who consumes the most information? Who initiates most protocol sessions? This is very simple, but you see, it's just the same way that when I held up a coin. For the first 2 minutes, it's a coin. Okay, since everybody got the first 4 very easily, who are constant in purpose in an internal environment? So, say it like you mean it. No, like servers, what? Both. Explain that. Clients are going to initiate in many different ways for a few different services. They're going to go to the same servers almost always in an enclave. They're not sitting there going out at the same time hitting an Oracle, hitting web whacking things, FTPing things, hitting print stuff all simultaneously. There's going to be a small, at least a small deviation in time or delta in time. Very good. Single in scope. What does the internal SMTP server do? What else does it do? Yes, and the FedEx guy is a drug dealer, I understand. Name an internal server that you communicate to. I don't care what it is. And I don't want the freaking IP address. Yep, we hit SMTP, good. A DB server, a file server, okay. That file server, what else is it doing? Where is it ever looking like something other than a server? Good. When it's powered off and finally secure. DNS lookups, okay. We can deal with that. Authentication, good. Those are small. We can deal with that also. If a human is sitting at it. Maybe backups also, depending on which piece of software that you have with a whole bunch that's about 5 megabytes in size, set UID root. A client. What is a client doing? Internal constrained environment, an inside network, behind your corporate firewall. Fantasy football web server. No, the client is not the fantasy football web server. You are not behind the firewall. Come on, guys, you got to work with me on this one. Think. You're dealing with it every day. Web browser. Sorry. Interns. They are pure consumers of everything, including resources, cafeteria food, time, spyware. You're telling me that most of your clients out there, most of your clients in the internal environment are actually producing more information that they're consuming and they're sending it over to Nigeria nets? I'll buy that. Go on. I'm not buying that. I like the way you're thinking, but what is your normal environment? When you're at the office and you sniff the network, if you could see all of the network traffic, like all the IDSs want to say, we really need total coverage. NetBIOS broadcasts. Email. Okay, so basically, none of your companies actually make money. This is what I'm assuming. Because you're not doing anything useful with any clients on the internal organization. You spend a lot for firewalls. You're doing vulnerability scanning. You've got IDSs and everything else. And you have the majority of your clients being used for spyware, which are pushing information out. I don't know what information they're pushing out because you don't have any in your organization. They're acting as servers in many ways. And basically, Microsoft has won by routing the unroutable with NetBIOS and NetBEUI. There you go. Okay, accessing an Oracle database. Okay. What are the things that clients do? Too general. But thank you. So, okay, surf porn. I'll give you that one. And hopefully they're consuming more than they're producing, right? Depends on the business model. That's a good point. Depends on the business model. I worked at a company a long time ago, prior to working at BBN the first time, and I loved creating developer tools. This is where I first met, Marcus Raynham and some other guys like that, because he liked creating toolkits. And he was bent out of shape that other people would do things with the toolkits to make them consumer products and to offer a turnkey solution, and people would buy it, but they wouldn't buy the general toolkit from Marcus. This is a society of consumers, not producers. Flat out. Makes sense. And there's nothing wrong with that. You'll have a smaller amount of producers than you will ever have consumers. Took me a while to realize that. That's a boring one. If everybody can take one note away from this entire thing, it's that Vern Paxson is God. He's deaf, which goes along with God as well, but he is fantastic. Vern did a few papers, stepping stones, relay points. He's working on some other things which you'll have to actually talk to him about to figure out what they are or ask him. He's a very approachable person. Stepping stones are a classic example of how simple the internal environment is. How obvious we are as intruders, and I'm saying we, yes, going into places. You have a security perimeter. You've managed to bypass that somehow. And I'll guarantee you 99% of the time it wasn't because you went directly through it. Because that's a high-risk maneuver. Maybe you went in through, a island hopping type exercise, going in through somebody's VPN. Maybe you went in through a Trojan. Maybe you went in through, a botnet that somebody somehow managed to bring inside to an internal environment that's connected to the external environment. How do you get back in? Yeah, very good. That's one way. The client sends a request out, maybe to a web server or whatever, does an HTTP reverse tunnel. Interesting, because of course the client is now engaged in a communications channel where it initiated to a server, and it's producing the information. Even if you're in an interactive session, like a telnet type embedded session, going back and forth, it looks interactive on top of that. It's not a non-interactive session. The time duration is way too long for what's going on. All of these are obvious things. You've now gotten back into that server or client. This is one of the times they're clients and servers. How do you get around the rest of the enclave? Steal credentials. Somebody's looking at the actual slide and inferring correctly. Yep, steal credentials. Go from point A, which you control, to point B, to point C, to point D. How do people communicate to systems inside your enclave? Directly. Conservation of energy. This actually goes back to the physics slide. You can look at it. There is one square that's wrong when you actually read through it. What does this look like in network traces when you're hopping from system to system to system to system? Would you be able to see that if you had enough data, not just headers, not just Cisco net flows, maybe even with Cisco net flows, I don't know. Might be a little more difficult to correlate them together, but this isn't rocket science. You go from point A to point B to point C to point D. Why? Have you ever thought about that? Well, you're already in on point A, so you're already past the firewall. You know a way to get through. Why not go through it again and again and again? More information. So, because we want to. I like it. You must work for DHS. Misdirection, okay. There you go. You're on the outside. You've passed the security perimeter. how many times do you want to pass that security perimeter? Each time you go past it, the higher risk of you getting caught. So it's not only the ease of the access to the first system, but of course, if you got into that first system, you could basically initiate a whole bunch of other requests. You spawn out from that first system. This is not at all the way internal environments work, but it is the way that risk-averse adversaries do work. Which then goes right back to who the heck is attacking once they're on an inside network? You're risk-averse at that point. You want to stay in as long as you can. You want to get as much information as you can. You have that whole XY, Outer Games, and Robert Hansen scenario going on. And, hopefully you don't even know each other. Why else would you go in that way? Just one time and then spawn out, as opposed to crossing the security perimeter many times. Yeah. Oh. The answer was reduce the risk of discovery. So again, it's a risk-averse type situation for the initial system that you're coming in. So you're not going to go in and hit a whole bunch of systems through whatever hole or whatever way you found into the enclave, because of course you don't want to give them all up. I like that. I was asking the question. I didn't have an answer. This is the only reason I talk, because I'd like to actually get something back out of it. Excuse me. Yeah, that's good. Who do you work for? Sun. Do you know Casper Dick? Casper's fantastic. That's a high compliment to either one of us. Well, you know what? We'll go back here. Interactive versus non-interactive. How simple is this to actually see in network traces? Think about it. I don't care whether you're in character by character mode or line mode for communications. You connect up to a server. Let's say it's an SMTP server. Let's say you're using some insane hacker tool that's now part of every major distribution of Unix called Netcat. Hobbit. What does that look like compared to normal communications? Yeah, very chatty, very sporadic. Very off and on, very small data packets, even in line mode, compared to how the optimization of an internal system actually puts together the data and actually sends it out for the highest communications bandwidth and the highest utilization of the system that you're dealing with. I wrote this tool called Anti-Sniff a long time ago, and I based it off some stuff that Tom Ptacek, Tim Newsham, and some other people, we had all had conversations. I decided to put a whole bunch of things together. I added a few new novel components in myself. Not much. And I said, well, this is kind of peculiar. Because I can look at how people are normally responding to things, and it's always optimized if it's the system. It is going to put the most amount of data in the packets, in the chain of MBuffs, queue them all up and send them all out. 3Com had this chip out, which entirely rocked my world in a very, very bad way. Because, of course, one of the tests for anti-sniff was, I'm going to look at systems, I'm going to ping them with a high-resolution timer that's inside the ICMP packet, get it back, look at the time deviation. I'm going to spray the network with a whole bunch of ether frames that are destined to, and I learned this one, don't set the least significant bit of the most significant byte to 1, because that will take down every one of the switches that are actually in the environment. And I'm going to spew stuff out, all sixes ether octets. Actually, it falls within the reserved numbers. So nobody should answer this. And I'll put realistic-looking IP packets inside of it. I might even make them look like TCP packets. I might even make them look like they're going to port 23. I might even make them look like they're actually doing a logon, because I'm going to try and tickle some sort of user land application that wants this stuff from the kernel. So while I send out all those spurious frames, I start pinging the systems again. And I look for who has normal increased latency and who has orders of magnitude of increased latency. Because, of course, they're context shifting from ring 0 to ring 1, left and right, to get the information over to this little client land application. Almost all the systems work universally beautifully, and they said, if I'm not in promiscuous mode, I've got hardware filtering at the NIC card that's going to say, I don't care, I don't want to see the packet, I'm not handing over the kernel, I'm not going to do a context shift, period, I'm not even going to send a freaking interrupt over to the kernel to get this information over. And so, yeah, whatever normal latency the actual hardware NIC was dealing with. If you were in promiscuous mode, oh, your response time just skyrocketed. It was so slow, it was atrocious. I loved it. It was a very universal way, operating system independent, taking advantage of how hardware works, how it's trying to be optimized to send information the same way that almost all of the things are designed in an internal enclave. They're supposed to be optimized for accessing and getting and reacting with and interacting with information. It was a no-brainer. One network card was faster when it was in promiscuous mode. Ping a system, get a response time, send out a whole bunch of spurious data that you're hoping that's going to operate on if it's in promiscuous mode, ping it while you're doing that, and it's quicker. You know, it was 3Com. Luckily, they didn't make a lot of network chips or anything, the same way that Boston is not a big college town. Why? It's all right, I spent 2 years sleepless, drinking heavily. No, I spent more than 2 years doing that. Why was it faster? Not power optimization, it's not a laptop. This was a little bit before laptops were all over the place. I don't even know when Anderson first came out. It wasn't busted because all the 3Com chips. So that's the same way saying, like, you know, 3Com was busted. Well, yeah, but so is Cisco. It was built to handle normal traffic. And normal traffic from a client system in an internal enclave is going to try to maximize the utilization of the bandwidth available to it. So it is going to queue things up into its own internal buffer, and it's going to spurt them out when it's got a full buffer or a particular time duration, which is very small for us to deal with, is hit. It says, out on the net, out on the net, or full, out on the net. That's still really slow when you're talking about million microseconds. When you were in promiscuous mode, of course, it would say, whenever you get a single packet or a single, it's something that you can actually put out on the line by itself, as opposed to trying to queue things up. You send it. It was optimized for normal usage. The way we all work on internal environments. I looked into languages for a while and said, oh, this is kind of, you got, at the airports you see the freaking Rosetta Stones things, you see Pimsleur, you see a whole bunch of other things. The military does rapid language learning to actually, you know, send people out to foreign offices left and right, and works great. Takes what? 2 months, 3 months tops. And the guy's over in a foreign country, speaking a foreign language, and interacting with people. I took 4 years of a language in freaking college, and I can't speak a word of it. How does that work? Did they tap into some magical part of the brain? No. Go ahead. Alien implants. Okay. Another gamer. Forced immersion? Very close. Their job depends on it. I know people whose job, they depend, their job depends on them actually having a technical proficiency and understanding very simple mathematics. And they don't. And they don't lose their job. Immersion's an interesting one. That's very quick. It's very, very easy to do. It's very difficult to field somebody because, of course, you're giving them up. This person didn't know our native language, was shoved over here on an American passport, and learned it. And 2 years later, oh, they're back over here interacting with us as if he was a native. But the way you learn through that is the same way, because when you're dealing with society, you're dealing with the language, you're dealing with a new environment, you learn to survive. You learn conversational syntax, which is a huge, or that was going to be a little oxymoron there, like jumbo shrimp, a huge subset, which is a very small subset of the total language. Protocols work the same way. They learn to speak the smallest subset of whatever the IETF standards are, whatever the RFCs say. They do not implement all of them. I don't care whether it says must, may, should not, all in capitals. They do what's going to work most quickly, most accurately, with the widest range of vendors. How many people are familiar with RFC 821 and 822? How many people are familiar with mail? There was, or there is, a part in the RFCs saying the turn command. Turn. Like hello, mail from, relay. This is in the beginning. This is in the control section, not the actual message header and then hence the data, which is RFC 822. What did the turn command do? It's part of the RFC. Reverse the order of sending mail. Who implements it? Absolutely. Why do you want to have a language that you're going to learn and going to go through the entire lexicon for Spanish, Portuguese, Putonghua, or Cantonese, or other things to that extent? Learn all of this information when nobody speaks it. You're going to go out and you're going to learn exactly the way people communicate because it's so small, so succinct. It's the actual conversational statistical analysis that you're doing. So we can look for stego all day long. We can say, oh, well, there are all of these ways to. There are all these ways actually you have to do this. So only usually. Morse code was set up on conversational statistical analysis. The most common letters in the English language are the shortest ones from Morse code. Makes sense. You had to get the data back and forth. If I'm starting to look at HTTP or any other protocol, this is just a header example, I'm going to see conversational frequencies. This is, space is one of the highest ones. Carriage returns, about the end of every line. I'm not seeing a whole bunch of other frequencies. And no, I don't have any Excel chops, as you can tell, because otherwise I would have made that much more clear. But Excel was not originally a Microsoft company, so I can use it. Simple stuff. I could speak to you in nothing but, no, I couldn't. I was going to say 10-syllable words, and I'd probably know 0 of them. But we could converse in nothing but 4-syllable, 5-syllable, and above words. It would be very difficult. It would be an obtuse communication. And we wouldn't impart much information back and forth. I shouldn't say this. The answer was we could work for the White House press office. I used to hide behind my handle. It was Mudge. Nobody knew who the mysterious Mudge was. Right. They didn't. I was very private. I go out of my way, not because I was afraid of people learning who I was, but because nobody needed to know it. Nobody needed to know what my age was, what my race was, what my religion was. I mean, I was kicking the pot, I was stirring up a little bit of trouble, but you know what? You had to take the information for what was in the information itself. You know who gave up my name? The White House press corps. I was interacting with some people at the time, and this was way prior to the little Clinton get-together. Clinton invites a hacker to go talk about DDoS. Oh, no. So I called up the day before the actual invitation, or the actual event, and I said to a person that I was friendly with, would it help if I was there? Could I impart anything useful? I'm not trying to go in for the photo op or whatever, but this is going to be a disaster. He said, yeah, get on a plane, come down, I'll have you in there. So, sitting a couple chairs down, I'm sitting next to Janet Reno. Oh, and of course, Bill Clinton was tall. Al Gore was taller. Janet Reno was tallest. So they send out the press release, of course, because you have to give your Social Security number each time you're going into the big White House. So, going in, walking up, and they just took that and basically published the names as to who was actually going to be there. Somebody saw this, the person I was working with, and said, what are you doing? No, we don't give out his actual name. You know, he's just going to be represented as Mudge. So the White House press corps said, oh, we'll fix that. And they issued another press release with only one change. Gene Spafford had a field day on that one. Oh, yeah. It wasn't a super secret. But it wasn't out in the presses. Okay, this one I'm going to get in trouble for. There was this project that went on, and I've got 1 minute, I think. I'm probably a little over that because of the last anecdote, and I'm going to wrap it up. This has been, hopefully, deep knowledge, and I look at deep knowledge as different ways of approaching things. There was a project called BAS a while back, the Bulk Auditing Security System, and they scanned the entire internet. This was only a few years back, so this was a large amount of IP address space. They were looking for 3 or 4 well-known vulnerabilities that had patches for them. Was it 99? Yeah. Getting old. Their conclusion was over a third, almost a half of the internet was unpatched. That meant that patching systems, keeping them up to date, was a solution. Maybe even automatic patch updates. Wrong. What they should have learned from this was very similar to the female group that never got caught. It's how they operated, what information they could actually get, how we're not thinking like them. You can look at any large organization, and you don't have to break the law at all. You can look at the information that they're publishing, that they have out on their various FTP servers. They might not be advertising, they might be advertising. You don't have to go through their access control lists to get to their web servers. Suck down everything and start doing very simple sed scripts, lexical searches on the information. In New York, we had a power outage a few years back, and everybody wanted to know, oh, was it terrorists? Did the terrorists do that? I got a phone call. I said, Mudge, could you take a look at this real quickly? And I said, okay. Get back to you in 24 hours. Get back to him. I said, no. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, no. It was not terrorist. It was too small. It was too difficult to make it that confined of a problem. 3 years later, I'm meeting with some people at some large White House somewhere, and they're talking about, geez, yeah, we looked into that, we funded a study, and the information came back, and that no, it wasn't done intentionally. Took me 3 hours total, and of course I was sitting there basically smoking a cigarette, drinking another whiskey sour as my software was doing it, from going through looking for open source intel from these organizations. Took them 3 years and many, 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 many of your taxpayer dollars to do the same thing. It's all how you approach the problem. It's all how you look at it. And more importantly, it's how you understand the way that you are predisposed to look at problems and the box that puts you in. That's all I have.